Hello, Packers fans, and welcome to another edition of the Pack Attack Cast. Packers training camp practice number 5 is in the books. And believe it or not, after the practice today, which is Wednesday, half of the practices that are available to the public, and I'm not counting family night because it's more of an exhibition than a real practice, will be in the books for training camp. So we are literally a week and a half in, and yet half of the public practices will be done by this time, tomorrow. So very excited about what we're seeing in practice so far. There's a huge amount of positive energy uh, with the Packers right now, and it just really makes me feel like this is a team that is under the radar with the national media. They've got certain darling teams. And hey, I don't begrudge them for saying the Rams are the favorite. I still think the Rams are probably the favorite if they stay healthy to win the championship. But this time last year, even before Micah Parsons was traded, there was a lot of positive buzz about the Packers that I'm just not seeing right now. Everybody's excited about the Bears. Everybody's excited about a couple other up and coming teams. And after what happened at the end of last year, I feel like the national media has kind of faded the Packers. They're not focused in on the Packers as being a contender, which is very unfortunate for uh, everybody who's not paying attention, because I think the Packers are really putting things together to be a very definite contender for the Super Bowl this year. If they could get through this early part of the season without Micah Parsons, and we'll talk about some of the things the defense is doing to work through that in my notes, I think the Packers can absolutely be a contender. And while you see other teams having significant injuries in training camp, we haven't really seen that with the Packers yet, knock on wood. And hopefully that trend will continue and the Packers could be on the other side of the health equation. If you look at the participants in the Super Bowl for the last 10 years, there's a huge metric that favors healthy teams making it to the Super Bowl. And as you know, the Packers were one of the unhealthiest teams last year. So if we could swing that pendulum the other way, with the exception of Micah Parsons being out for a couple weeks, we really could be in a good place to be a dark horse team for the Super Bowl this year. And it's crazy for me to consider the Packers a dark horse, considering that they were so close last year before things fell apart in Denver. But that is where we are with the Packers, especially in the national media. So let's talk about our news and notes from practice number 5. Lots of things to go over today. So let's go through that. Let's go through our injury updates. First of all, cornerback Kamal Haddon and defensive tackle Brant Banks have been taken off the physically unable to perform list and are back in practice. Kamal Haddon, I've seen him working on individual drills the last 2 days. And it'll be interesting to see if he can get into the mix for the team drills, especially since we saw Carrington Valentine drop off um, out of practice yesterday because he has a hamstring injury. So that's something we have to watch very closely, because Carrington Valentine was getting starting reps at corner before this hamstring injury. We'll see how long that keeps him out. And that put Brandon Cisse squarely in the role of a starting corner. I thought he did a lot of good things today. We'll talk about that later. But Brandon Cisse getting reps right now is really, I think, pushing forward the narrative that he could be a legitimate contender for a starting role as early as the middle of the season this year. I feel really good about Cisse's development right now. So that's really important to note. One important note here is Jonathan Baldwin dropped out of practice with an injury mid practice yesterday. I saw that right in front of me. There was a scuffle kind of after a play was dead, and after that, Baldwin came up limping, and he went into the Hudson Center after trying to work it out on the sidelines. So hopefully that's not a big problem because Baldwin has looked really good, and I think he has a great chance of making the squad this year as the backup nickel. So it'll be important to see if that injury lingers and that might impact his ability to make this team. We're going to watch that very closely. Sorry about my voice. Uh, we've been through 5 practices and I've been yelling through 5 practices. So I'm a little hoarse today. Hopefully, we could get through this stream and our practice today, which will be the final practice I'll attend live, and get you another report before the team stops the public practices to get ready for family night. So, notes before practice. Jordan Love stated on Sunday after practice that Matthew Golden will be playing the X receiver in the offense. Now, this is very interesting because the X receiver, how could I explain this to people who are not watching football on a daily basis? The X receiver is kind of your isolated wide receiver on one side. So if you have 3 wide receivers, 2 on the outside, 1 on the outside on the other side, the isolated receiver one on one side is the X receiver. So Romeo Dobbs played this almost exclusively last year, and he was very effective in those gotta get it plays. So basically, what this is telling us, in my opinion, is Matt LaFleur is going to say, if we need a catch for a key third down, a big play in the end zone, etc., they're going to be looking for Matthew Golden to play one-on-one and win that matchup in man-to-man coverage. So that doesn't mean that Christian Watson is going to be a big part of the offense or Jaden Reed, but what it does mean is when they want to isolate one player to make a big play, it's scripted up to be Matthew Golden. So that's really big news. I think there's a lot of people that thought Christian Watson would play that role, but I was always of the opinion that Matthew Golden would play that role because Christian Watson is so good deep as a speed receiver that you don't want to take that away from the offense. So it makes a lot of sense for Matthew Golden to take on that role. And it'll be interesting to see if he can carry that off. So far in training camp, Matthew Golden has looked really well in that position. So I'm hoping that will continue. Some other notes before practice. Matt LaFleur said DDS has flashed so far, and he's done really well in playing inside and outside and making him a very versatile player for the defense. And that's a very interesting thing. And I mentioned this, I think, a couple of videos ago, that DDS is consistently being lined up on the inside in a position to rush and push the pocket, which is something that Micah Parsons has historically done. So do I think they're trying to use DDS as a stand-in for what Micah Parsons would do on a lot of these plays? I think that makes a lot of sense, and that seems to be what I'm looking at today. This was a big day for the defense. The defense 100% was winning the day today. Now, that's been the case most days so far in camp, but the offense was still able to sprinkle in a couple big plays to balance things out. Today was largely, or yesterday, was largely a defensive dominated event. There was defensive plays made over and over and over again, and the offense really struggled against the defense. Now, that's not unusual. Usually, defenses are ahead of offenses at this point in training camp. But I think this is a very exciting prospect for what we're going to see for this season, because I think this means Gannon is doing a great job of calling plays and causing frustration to the offense for the Packers. And that's what we want to see for the opponents in the regular season. So, for example, yesterday, for the first time, Jordan Love threw an interception in practice. He was intercepted by Xavier McKinney. And the interesting thing is, in my opinion, historically, Jordan Love has thrown more interceptions in practice because I think he's trying to figure out what he can get away with and what he can't get away with in the regular season. So the fact that this is his first interception tells me that he's getting better at figuring out what he can get away with and making fewer mistakes in practice, which really makes me excited about the regular season and Jordan Love being able to carve up defenses. I think every year he sees the field better, and I think this is an example of how the defense is getting easier and easier for Jordan Love to read, especially since Gannon is throwing a lot of exotic looks at the offense. That tells me a lot about Jordan Love's development. But he did throw his first interception to Xavier McKinney. On that play, he was clearly trying to thread the needle and get the ball in a very tight window. Again, Jordan Love likes to practice this in training camp to know what he can and cannot get away with. So it was very interesting to see. Also on defense, Anthony Campbell, defensive lineman, has now batted away 4 passes at the line of scrimmage in 5 practices after Monday. He is just putting on a clinic on putting his hands up and blocking passes. And that's not only important, excuse me, for playing on defense, but I think Anthony Campbell could be finding a role for himself on special teams as well. Think about that big wingspan at 6'6". If he could consistently block knockdown passes, he can also block kicks. So if Anthony Campbell makes this team, he could be a factor not only in knocking down passes as a backup defensive lineman, but he might be thrown out there with the kick defense team trying to block kicks. And I think he could be very effective in that role. So this really increases his chances of making the team. Second round pick, Brandon Cisse, was the starting cornerback opposite Keyshawn Nixon because Carrington Valentine was out. And he made a lot of great breakup coverage plays yesterday in practice. Very excited about that. And speaking of Cisse, we've also seen a lot of corner blitzes continue every single practice. And Brandon Cisse actually sacked Jordan Love in one rep in particular yesterday, where he actually he chased down Jordan Love from behind and got a sack on the play. Obviously, he didn't tackle Jordan Love, but it was very clear that if he hadn't pulled up, that would have been a sack. And that is important to note. So Cisse is doing great on coverage. He's doing great on these corner blitzes. Brandon Cisse, to me, is looking like a player that will be a starter by the middle of the season. So watch that very closely. On offense, there were some highlights. Again, mostly it was the defense that was running the show in practice number 5. But Matthew Golden and Jordan Love continued to build that connection on the field for the X receiver position. Jaden Reed made some really great plays over the middle yesterday, including one that would have gone for a long touchdown. That was a really great play where Jordan Love was under pressure in the pocket. He bought time. Jaden Reed then became wide open in the middle, Jordan Love got him for a big play that was caught in the middle and then went up the far sideline. And that would have been a touchdown, in my opinion, if the play had played out. So Jaden Reed is looking really good in this offense. I think Jaden Reed is going to be one of the biggest prizes in 2026. He shouldn't be because he had a great year in 2023 and 2024, but I think defenses are going to kind of sleep on Jaden Reed early in the season because of his struggles last year, both with injury and getting back into a groove when he came back from injury. I think Jaden Reed, it can definitely be a big X factor for this offense early in the season before teams realize that they need to really pay attention to Jaden Reed, especially up the middle. One thing I really liked yesterday, and I wanted to point it out, Marshawn Lloyd was running very hard in practice. Um, every rep that I saw Brandon Lloyd take the ball, he was running at 100%. He was making cuts, he was making moves. And what I really liked about Marshawn Lloyd yesterday is once he was tackled and the play was dead, he was still running through the rep. Um, what a lot of veteran players will do is once you're wrapped up, basically they'll just say, okay, play is over. But Lloyd was actually taking the tackle. Keep in mind, these aren't real tackles, they're just being held in place. But after he's released, he then took the rest of the rep to run for a few more seconds as if he broke the tackle and he's continuing the play. And I really like that energy, enthusiasm from Marshawn Lloyd. That tells me that he's got a lot of energy and passion, and he is just primed, if he stays healthy, to make some big impact plays for the Packers. I think we're really going to see in the preseason a lot of Marshawn Lloyd. The Packers want to protect Marshawn Lloyd from injury, but at some point they have to see if he can be a running back in the NFL and not get hurt. And the best way to do that is to run him hard in the preseason. So I expect Lloyd to get a lot of reps in the preseason. And if he plays with the energy, enthusiasm, and stays healthy, I think he might be one of the surprise preseason darlings of the NFL this year. I think a lot of people might see Marshawn Lloyd in the preseason and be drafting him for their fantasy teams because of the upside he shows in the preseason. We'll see. Obviously, he still has to stay healthy. Finally, let's get through special teams here before my voice totally goes out. The Packers worked receivers Sky Moore, Jaden Reed, and Matthew Golden, and Will Shepard as punt returners on Monday. I feel like the Packers are narrowing down who their punt returners are going to be, and their kick returners are going to be. I feel like they're narrowing the field to a couple players. Sky Moore, Jaden Reed, and Will Shepard, I feel, are the players that are most likely to get reps and kick return and punt returns. I think Sky Moore is still the preferred player if he makes the team, and he's been making enough plays with the offense that I think Sky Moore will probably make this team. More on that later. But let's get to the rest of special teams. So Trace Mack went 3 of 5 on Sunday and is now 8 of 13 for kicks in practice. So, sorry, he was 8 for 5 on Sunday and 5 of 8 on Monday, including what was a very audible dunk on the left upright in practice yesterday. And when that kick went up and he hit the upright, the whole fandom just put out a sigh of disappointment. It was audible how disappointed everybody in the stands were with that kick. But I need to remind you that this is only 2 practices where Trace Mack has had his holder and his long snapper, and that's not even the long snapper that they're going to be using in season because Matt Orzik is still out. So when you see a missed kick, it's easy to focus on the kicker missing the kick. Okay. Obviously, he's the biggest component, but the snap has to be right. The holder has to put down the ball right, and the kicker has to hit the ball square. All those things have to happen. It's an operation, it's not just the kicker. And if the snap is high, if the holder puts the ball down wrong, if the kicker is delayed in his approach for the kick, all these things can screw up the kick. So it's not necessarily just smack that's causing the problems. And I'm hoping they will work this out. They still have plenty of time, including the preseason, to get smack up to being where he could be a very good kicker for the regular season. So don't let that panic you. It is still very early in training camp, but it is worth watching. And everybody in the stands is watching every time Trey Smack takes a rep. So those are your news and notes for practice number 5. In just a couple hours, I will be going to practice number 6. That will be my last live practice. It's really bittersweet for me. I'm excited to go to practice today, but I'm also disappointed because after this, I'm going to pack up and I'm going to travel back to my home location in Denver and pick up coverage from a distance. You'll still get the same news and notes. I'm still going to watch as much coverage of training camp as I can, and I'll bring the information back to you. And I think having these 6 practices as a baseline is really going to help me continue to give you great coverage on training camp throughout the rest of training camp. Very excited about it. After today's practice number 6, we'll be halfway done with public practices. It's amazing how fast training camp will be. Important notes. This Thursday, we have the Hall of Fame game. And then on Friday, the Packers have family night. So actual games are on the horizon, and NFL is going to be here before you know it. Until then, go Pack Go. We'll be back here tomorrow morning with my notes from practice number 6. Talk to you then.